Hi everyone from Giaco. After living over a decade in Finland, I decided to help building a bridge between the English-speaking people living in Finland and the local community. Listen to my podcast to discover the most interesting and incredible people from Finland and to dig into Finnish culture and controversial issues that impact all of us in our daily life. And now sit back and enjoy listening. Bye! Hi everyone. The following is a conversation with Jussi Markula, a company consultant and coach that promotes the Teal paradigm of company organization that is based on self-organization and self-governance. With him, we challenge the status quo of company structures and organization's control and power plays. Please enjoy. Hi Jussi.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good. So thank you for coming here. Can you tell us something about yourself, who you are and what you do?
I have a background as a serial entrepreneur. I've been growing companies, doing several things from business to processes to people. And now for the last 10 years I've been a consultant and a trainer.
What do you consult? What is the theme of your consultancies?
I help companies and also public sector organizations who want to remove hierarchies.
Exactly, that's why you're here to talk about that. So where does this need of removing hierarchy comes from, and what is the theory behind this?
The need comes from, I think, today's complex environment and the amount of information and communication there is, that we cannot thrive anymore with the traditional ways that we lead companies and we collaborate. And some companies have been exploring new ways how we can lead together and cooperate in new kind of paradigm, and so that in the end the organizations and people thrive and can live a better life.
So unpredictable world requires a different kind of approach inside the company.
Yes, for example, thinking about information and understanding and knowledge, traditional idea is that we can have a small group of people, we can call it management, that they gather the information about the environment and what's going on, they process it and they develop some kind of strategy and deploy it back to the people. But the environment is changing so fast, it's volatile, uncertain, that we need more and more people to make sense of what's happening, where are we, and sort of in a continuous way be on top of things. The situational awareness needs to be constant and shared among more and more people.
Because it is anyway it's something not that new that if we consider, for example, a situation in which we have a management team and then we have a sales force. It is not that new, the idea that okay, we have to get from the sales people some feedback from the market that we reintegrate into the company. So in that sense is not such new, but this, when what you do and the consultancy you do goes a step forward, because actually then the hierarchy, in this example that I made, the hierarchy would work in the same way. Okay, you integrate the feedbacks from the market, but then still it's top down what happens.
Yes, we aggregate it to small group of people. We centralized, we put them on top of following the hierarchy, make the decision making and making sense of it. But actually we have all of the people have great ideas. They have concerns, they notice things, and this way we can have sort of when more people use their capabilities, giving their ideas, sharing concerns in a more collective, using the collective wisdom. I think this makes us much more capable in thriving in this complexity.
Because shared knowledge and sharing the knowledge, it's well, I believe, well understood. But then, what is the advantage of sharing the power and the decision making?
I think it comes to agency, how we feel ourselves as human, that are we just participating in someone else's tasks, or what are we, is our life sort of like whatever we do for work, is it something that we connect ourselves more in a more personal and soulful and engaged way? Engagement rates are very low nowadays, that people are not very engaged at work. And in this way, I'm not working for someone else. I have the agency that because not only sharing these organizations who remove the hierarchy, they are not only sharing power but also the responsibility, that we are more and more than everybody looking at what's happening here in a bigger picture, looking at the systemic view, what's going on, how do we serve customers, what are the market trends, technology trends, they are changing constantly. So more and more, instead of collecting information in a hierarchy and then predicting what will happen and controlling that, we can less and less work in this kind of predict and control way. It's more like constant sensing and adapting to what's going on.
Pivoting and improving.
Exactly.
So you think that the engagement of the people working, it's actually a crucial factor into success and into the company being successful. And so the sharing the hierarchy, sharing the power will allow people to be more engaged because they are more responsible, or is it because they become more close to what they want to do?
Well, good question is, what is success?
Of course, yeah. Monetary success or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's something that, yes, monetary success is important as a tool, as a vehicle, but not a means in itself. People are not motivated to do just money for someone. That's not how our intrinsic motivation is lightened up. But we are okay with generating monetary and other resources so that we can do some things that are actually meaningful for ourselves, that we can have an impact, whether it's something very in a traditional domain that we're doing, or we don't need to cure the cancer or do some very noble and big things. It can be very day-to-day operations, but still finding that value we are providing to the customers and to the society, understanding that this is actually something I'm willing to put my capabilities, my time and energy. Big part of our lives anyway is spent on work.
Yeah.
For those people who have work.
Yeah, you sleep 7 hours, hopefully at least, and then you work 8 hours. So most of the time you are doing something else than maybe what you want to do. And
it doesn't have to be in this kind of times that we are living in. It doesn't need to be something that we just do for out of obligation and just to get money. We can more actualize ourselves and be part of the society in making the work more meaningful. That work is not something we need to get away from to get energy. Work can be something that is just one part of our life that is meaningful, and sometimes it gives us energy, sometimes
it uses it. Yeah, and so your consultancy, it's anyway based on theories that they are based on this Reinventing Organization book. Can you tell us about this book and what is the Teal hypothesis?
Yes, the book was written in 2014 by a Belgian researcher and previous management consultant, Frederic Laloux, when he was looking at organizations that...
From McKinsey, right?
Yes.
So a guy with a caliber. Yeah.
Yes, he knew how the very capitalistic, Tayloristic, traditional working life was operating and what were the problems. And then he started looking at organizations that somehow they were very different. He called them that they are operating from some kind of next stage consciousness. That kind of vocabulary is not so important, but they were doing things in a different way. And he started looking at these organizations from different domains around the world, and somehow he ended up finding patterns that something else is happening regarding how they collaborate, how they do the management together, and he started verbalizing the patterns and sort of classifying, creating a framework. It's a framework somehow explaining that we are more. It seems that we are now, maybe the transformation takes few decades or something, but we are now on the age where it might be that we are sort of approaching a bigger shift in how the organizations work. And some of these organizations had already worked like this for decades already. And so he gave some words, concepts, and tools to understand what's going on, how we could actually organize our working life in a very different way.
So he didn't invent anything, he just found patterns and then gave some kind of names to these categories, right? And the colors, that's why this teal, it's called teal as a blue color, and he gave colors to these different organization types that they have in common some patterns, and the hierarchy and the way in which power is shared, it's the main focus, correct?
Exactly. I think the main value is giving us words and concepts to talk about working life in a new way, that by explaining these different paradigms of leadership. And did we mention the book name, Reinventing Organizations?
Yes, I said. But can you tell us this paradigms of the organization? What are these?
Yeah, he explained five different ways that we can lead. First one is they all have a color and a metaphor. First one is a red paradigm, where the metaphor is a wolf pack, or a like street gang, where the leader has the power, and then we have followers who sort of are okay with that authority. Very much about who has the power, who is in charge, and whether you are a leader or a follower.
Yes.
A lot of power struggles coming from ego, power games, and
there is only one leader there.
Yes.
One making decisions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's not where you look at long-term things or can collaborate or get the best ideas naturally from people. But sometimes in all organizations there are situations where somebody is operating from fear or ego, that you cannot trust. Someone might try to stab you in the back.
Yeah.
But that's not the best we can do. So the next paradigm, which has the color amber, and a metaphor for a traditional hierarchical army, where sort of we invented the organizational pyramid, that you might have bosses, you need to do what your boss tells you. If you have subordinates, you need to take care of them. We have very strong processes and strict, stable roles, that you are in this box, you need to do what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And very stable social norms, what is expected, what is right, what is wrong. And people are controlled by these approaches, the social norms and the roles
structure.
And processes, structure. So if the environment is very stable, this is how thousands or tens of thousands of people can collaborate. Again, not very innovative, not thriving as humans, but somehow we can get things done. But this wasn't enough when the complexity started to increase, maybe with the industrial and scientific revolution. World started to be more complex and faster, when we had to innovate faster. And that's why we came up with sort of the Tayloristic approach and the paradigm where a result-oriented paradigm, where we want to build good things by innovating better, faster than our competitors, giving power to those people who can perform well.
So you get the performance values and meters.
Yes, the goal-oriented leadership, where people are measured, like if you can deliver, then you are a better person than somebody else who cannot deliver as much. We sort of admire young and the aggressive, fast people who are good professionals. Then sort of in this paradigm we have to tolerate with humanity, but it's something that yes, let's do this HR stuff so that people are good enough that they can perform. It's all about results.
Yeah.
And it's like a well-oiled machine. And the machine keeps spinning. If there is some problem with team dynamics, let's do some team building stuff. So again, the wheel keeps spinning, and again we get results out of them.
Seems that a lot of companies would fall into this kind of.
I think it's still the dominant paradigm.
Yeah, yeah.
And then maybe during last decades especially, there has been more and more people who want to be everything that this world is not. Sort of going to the opposite direction, where we want to be soft and fluffy, human first, and culture, and somehow not being the cold-hearted, capitalistic, result-oriented people, but rather be very humane, very soft. I'm exaggerating here because there are good sides, of course, bringing the humanity in and thinking about the culture.
This is more like a family portrait.
Yes, the metaphor is a family. We are all in this together, and very we want to be equal. We want to make everybody equal. Everybody getting heard, and that's also the downside of this paradigm. Maybe we see it, for example, especially in Finland in IT sector. A lot of companies who want to build a great working place. We are the best place to work in the world. That's the main goal.
Yeah.
Create a good company for ourselves.
Yes.
Sort of looking inwards, that we feel good, which is not bad if it's a means to something bigger. But for some companies, it's more like the end goal. And it leads also some weird situations. For example, thinking about decision making, that we want to involve everybody. Decision making might become very slow. Yeah. We need to discuss until we all agree.
Because you don't want to hurt anyone. Everyone has to be somehow.
Exactly. Someone might be upset with this. So let's talk a little more.
Yeah.
And then some people they decide that this is too much. Decide just something. This is way too much. We need work. We have work to do.
Yeah.
So striving for consensus, striving for good emotions, and not being okay with sometimes like work is sometimes boring. Sometimes the colleague, it's okay to be mad because someone might be behaving badly or whatever happens. But here we sort of try to push this to the side, all the bad sides of humanity, bad sides of working life.
Yeah. It doesn't sound like a good family either, but.
No, it's maybe a family where there are a lot of elephants in the living
in the room. Yes.
We don't talk about those because they are not here. We are all a happy family, even though we know that there are a lot of things that skeletons or things that we don't want to talk about.
And this was then the green color.
Green color.
Yeah. Do you think that this, because as you were saying, it's a bit kind of the reaction to the orange color, so someone decided to start to go against this capitalism, goal-oriented company and structure, so they decided to go the far opposite side, where actually then you have to avoid fighting, but then you're actually forgetting what is the business. And are there companies like this that they actually can make money?
It's often in some companies where we want to have freedom for everybody, maximizing the freedom, but then there is still someone else who has responsibility. And I don't think it's a good match if power and responsibility are not aligned in the same place.
Yes.
Sometimes I'm using metaphor. This is like a teenager who then is not happy with living at home, taking his stuff and getting them out of the front door, that I don't want you to you parents, I hate you parents, I go out.
Yeah,
and
rebel.
Then I rebel. I rebel, go outside the house, but then where am I? I'm outside of the house, but I'm not yet anywhere.
Yeah, and you're missing the tools to do the next step.
I need maybe some food. Where do I stay? and this kind of parent-child relationship is something that is typical for these kind of green organizations, that when we sort of overdo the care of people, then if sort of managers, supervisors start acting like parents, then quite often we start having people who act like children.
Okay, you actually get the opposite result.
Yes.
And you're not fostering them, you are slowing them down in their growth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We are thinking that they are not capable of hearing bad news. We need to protect them from bad news. I think often, for example, managers, they have good intentions in this. That I don't want to, this is too stressful. I don't want to tell this to my team that whatever bad news I have. I'm trying to protect them. But at the same time, when I'm protecting them, I'm taking out the agency and thinking that these people are adults who are capable of hearing bad news, confronting tensions and conflicts and something. And
so the end result would be the same. You take away the agency from these people, so they are not going to be satisfied anyway.
Yes.
You were saying that in the other paradigm, the most common, this orange one, the HR role was kind of like just a function to be there because it's needed. But what is the role in this green, in the family concept? What is the role of HR? Because it seems it's so human intense and relationship intense environment. So what is the role of HR in this?
Well, in these organizations, a lot of time is spent on helping, mentoring, coaching, somehow supporting people. That sort of like I've seen a lot of prima donna like behavior in these companies where we have in a knowledge work we have highly skilled professionals who are not happy with their tools or happy with customers. I want better customers. They are not good for me. I don't like the technology they are.
Yeah, the attitude becomes that.
Yeah, and then somebody tries to support them, helping them verbalize their dreams and motives and feelings, and spending a lot of energy in trying to sort of cope with the mechanisms, the problems of the orange paradigm.
Yeah, and then so what is the next evolution?
Well, it could be that we are approaching this kind of paradigm, which in that framework it's called Teal paradigm, where the metaphor is a living organism. And when Frederick Laloux was studying these organizations, he found that many of these kind of progressive companies, they had some kind of, they said that our company is a forest or a swarm of whatever, that they came from biology, the metaphors. They were not anymore a machine, they were not a family, but they were some kind of ecosystem. More complex living ecosystem, which is in a constant flux and evolution. Everything is changing. You cannot control that kind of ecosystem. In a forest, there is no central tree telling others what to do, but somehow it's working in a constant symbiosis.
But this seems like a nightmare of a CEO. Because a CEO thinking like, okay, I have an ecosystem that just I don't understand and moves, and so how this paradigm can work and what it is based on.
I think it's a nightmare for a CEO with a traditional understanding of organizations.
Yeah, and management ways.
I think I wouldn't call it a paradise, but I've seen CEOs who are living a very good life in this kind of environment because they are not needed. The weight is taken away from their shoulders. They can use their gifts in things that they see useful. That it's not an inverted pyramid where in the end the CEO has all the responsibility just trying to not use the power, but the CEO is one person among the others with his or her own roles. That I'm interested in these complex business development issues or whatever I'm doing, but then that's just a role I need to take care of. I don't have power over others. I don't have any more responsibility than others except for my role. And then I think they are themselves living a more sustainable, that in the end it's not they who need to do something if someone else is doing.
Yeah.
Meaning that they are not so busy anymore. They have time, they have energy, they can take an initiative and use their capabilities in things that actually create value.
So let's open up now this Teal paradigm, because now we went deep into the CEO role, but let's maybe explain, please, Jussi, what is this paradigm of Teal?
Well, we can look at it in the framework. There are 3 breakthroughs that these companies have somehow been able to accomplish more or less. One of the breakthroughs is self-organization, meaning that we remove the power hierarchy. Doesn't mean that we are all equal, because we are not equal in our competence. We are not equal in our roles. But we have agency. We feel ownership over how we govern our work, and understand it makes sense to have these kind of roles. And if someone is an expert, it's yes, he or she has more knowledge. But we don't. Nobody has power over others. That is not a useful thing to have. It's not positional power.
How do you make someone to do a task if you don't have the power over another?
These organizations create an environment where people are working from their intrinsic motivation. So people don't need to be motivated. People are motivated. They want to do good work. In these organizations, it's more typical that people have there's quite much burnout when you remove the hierarchy and let go into this new paradigm that you need to learn to take care of yourself, because then it's not anymore someone else who limits what you do. For example, the supervisor or the HR is not telling you that are you doing too much. That we believe that people can do it themselves with the support of their peers. It's more like we look on the sides that everybody here is our colleague. We help each other. We challenge each other together.
Okay. I will challenge maybe that later, because we were going still through the other breakthroughs. One was this about the
remove the hierarchy, and also going to more collective processes and structures that we can tap into the collective intelligence. It's not so individualistic anymore, that you don't need to have all the information in your position to be able to make the decisions. You can somehow we can have the combination, sort of like have the ideas and opinions from a lot of people while still being very agile. That it doesn't need to end up with endless discussions. So this is the self-organization, the breakthrough. Then there are two others. One is the sort of human part, which is called wholeness. That people are whole beings who are something much more than the professional selves than we often need to show in the workplace. That we don't need, when we come in the morning to the workplace, we don't need to put on the professional mask and hiding something that is not professional. It's rather that people are people. They have their own life and their life situations and their own inspirations and problems and strengths. And then when these start appearing in the workplace, we don't need to spend energy in trying to. We don't need to hide some parts of ourselves. We are more comfortable. We feel more psychological safety, and that way we can build on each other's natural ways of being.
So you are also accepted by your colleagues for what you are in the whole sense.
Yes.
Not only for your hard working skills.
Yes.
And what is this the advantage in a business environment is the fact that you are most likely more productive and you're more focused and you're not worried about other stuff around you, like that you have to perform or be seen as something. You just have to be yourself.
Yeah, you don't need to spend energy in trying to look something. You can be yourself, which doesn't mean that you cannot behave badly. Bad behavior is bad behavior.
Of course, yeah.
But people
it's not removing education.
Yes. People are more creative. People are more innovative, more productive, and they are very eager to learn, because when we are sort of better realize who we are, where we are, then we can look also at the opportunities where we might want to go, improving our competence and so forth.
And then the third breakthrough.
Third breakthrough is called evolutionary purpose, and it's a little different concept. It's maybe the most challenging part of this framework, trying to explain it and understand it. It's not like what we see, that now this is our company purpose and now we are purpose driven.
A motto, not the motto.
No, not the motto, not the mission that we can say, because this is a very abstract concept of thinking that the organization has some kind of sense of direction in itself, and we cannot mandate it. because it's a complex living system going somewhere in this world, in environment that is constantly changing. And we can try to tune in and understand what is the sort of place of this organization, what does that organization want to make happen in the world. It's more like we listen in and tune in and synchronize our interpretation of is this meaningful thing that we're doing here together. We have our own personal aspirations that we would like this organization to do this. This is meaningful. We want to have this kind of impact, or what our competencies are. But then separating those that come from our own ego, our own self, and our own personal wishes from those that are happening in the collective, in the living system.
Okay, this is more difficult to put my finger on. So, but let's say if you start a company because you want to offer to seniors and retired, you want to offer services, home services. I mean, isn't that the purpose of the company? I mean, it starts from someone that decides that they want to feel that, and shouldn't that be then the purpose? Or
let me explain it from a different angle, because I've been working with companies and public sector organizations, and I've seen several big public sector organizations who have sort of started to implement the traditional business management practices of whatever KPI and result-oriented leadership and this all kind of Tayloristic stuff. And then a little bit digging in what's beneath all that, sort of questioning, is that really needed, that we need to motivate people through these kind of extrinsic goals?
With a KPI?
With KPI, with bosses' expectations. Because most people in these kind of environments, they have come to the sector because they really care about whether it's education or social or health sector or whatever. These people are already intrinsically motivated to provide the care, help people learn in a school or university. We don't need to motivate these people to get results, and sort of like then the natural energy is there to do that stuff, and that's why we don't need to control the machine and people in it to some direction, but rather let it emerge. This is quite closely related to how do we do strategy work. That strategy is often very hierarchical, very conscious way of that we have this strategy document and what's going on. But some organizations, they're huge organizations, some of them have thousands or tens of thousands of people, and they don't have a traditional strategy planning process at all, because they believe in the power of sort of collective emergence.
But they're still profitable companies.
They are profitable because they are well synchronized. It's not less fair that you just let whatever happens, but we are very, actually they are often much more systematic than traditional companies, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, it sounds controversial, yes. Almost like, yes.
Yeah, they need to be diligent and systematic to be able to coordinate the efforts of a big group of people, but we don't need power hierarchy to make that happen. It can be more a peer-to-peer system. But then this kind of strategical emergence of what is needed in this world, where is the business potential? We let people and teams and departments sort of find out the opportunities and let them more like in a viral fashion, then the other teams start emulating and copying what's going on. They maybe find some new opportunity here. Do our customers have the same kind of needs? And it happens more organically, this kind of strategical evolution, than we are in a centralized fashion controlling it.
Because the three breakthrough, if you stretch them to the maximum negative, you think like, okay, you don't have hierarchy, then the wholeness, and then this purpose. So you don't have a hierarchy. Today I wake up that I'm sorry my French, an asshole, and then my purpose for the day is just that, I don't know, I want to go until lunch and then go away. So you come in, you don't listen to anyone, you behave badly, and your purpose is totally different than others. It seems like a recipe for disaster. how this is for real managed? Is it the peer pressure, or do you believe that, is it so the belief that once your personal purpose it's aligned to what the company does, you have an internal motivation to do that, and then because you are a grown up, we assume you are doing it at your best?
I don't know where these people are who like you explained that
it was an extreme case to criticize.
And this often becomes what people think will happen.
Yeah, the fear of like, why should we do this change?
Because our working life for 100 or few hundred years, we've been organizing this out of an approach that people are lazy, they want to slack off, they are selfish, they need to be controlled, they need to be motivated.
Yeah, so they are doing something that they don't care anything about. So you've seen for sure people that they just, zombie through the day to just make it done.
But that's not how I see what humans are. That's how I see people behave in traditional organizations. And I think people are then, this is what manifests in traditional system. You get out of people, if you don't trust people, you get people who then think that if I'm not trusted anyway, I just do what is needed. Or maybe a little more, but something like if people are being trusted, they want to take the responsibility, and yes, they flourish in a way that people want to do good things and be good people and have a meaning in life.
So, and that is, it's kind of coming out from the agency that you were talking about, that these people, so this example, that a stupid example I gave, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, you do like this, but you believe that this person anyway, when given the agency and to have his own role, he will just like at one point say, well, actually here I can thrive, and here I can grow, and will start to become, let's say, behave normally, behave in a constructive way.
Yeah,
I fall back to this traditional paradigm, but I am contradicting you just to understand. Like, I'm thinking like the process of someone that is a CEO or in a company and things like, okay, I read this book, I understand these are really resonating concepts, but then the jump into the unknown and like, how will it practically work? I know I have a worker there that is lazy, she's lazy, I know it's coming out every day thinking about something else. I have to go every other week or every other day to say, Rip, do you remember this? Do you remember this project? Do you do follow up? So you wonder and you say, should I let him lose now suddenly? What will come out of that?
Well, I think most people understand the cumbersome processes that getting in a corporation or big organization, if sometimes it just doesn't, it's absurd that you need to fill these forms and get stamps from 3 different levels to get something done, decisions or using money or whatever, and so we are not most, but a lot of time is being spent on serving the bureaucracy.
Yes.
Because we have built it so that there are a few people who cannot be trusted, or well, there are many people, because the system is built from that paradigm where people cannot be trusted, and people are frustrated because
or the assumption is that people will be lazy or people will not behave.
Yeah, and fortunately this has been actually challenged by many historians nowadays, that there has been nice books like Rutger Bregman, Hopeful History, and David Wengrow, David Graeber, they've been writing also about this kind of how do we see people? Can they be trusted? Are they people who need to be controlled? Yes, and talking about control, these organizations, they have control, but they don't have this kind of, again, positional control that comes from positional power, from hierarchy. They have some kind of control mechanisms where we understand what's going on and we see it and we can coordinate our efforts. So if something bad happens, we notice it and we can take the corrective approaches ourselves. Sort of like, well, this is also, people are not always behaving well. I am not, you are not, nobody is. Sometimes we
How can you know?
Because you are a human, and everybody does. And sort of like sometimes we behave badly on purpose. That's what we are. We don't want that to happen most of the time, but sometimes it happens. So these companies, they need to have sort of boundaries for people. And the green organizations from the family paradigm, they are not good in setting the boundaries. And then if there is some person who is acting from very acting in a selfish way or poisoning the culture and the climate, they are not very resilient in tackling those situations. But I would call these Teal organizations that they have mechanisms where we approach in these situations as also we approach people from a place of grace and understanding that yes, everybody does their best, but in this situation for some reason or other something bad happens, people misuse their freedom, and then we see if it's can confront the situation.
Who does the confronting? Because normally it's in this situation in a normal hierarchy, it would be like the top manager that goes there to the guy, girl, and says,
or the HR.
Or the HR, hey, you misbehaved. This is you should not do this. They do it once, do it twice. Then we have to take some measurement and or measures. So in the family, then we were talking about this hiding things and not looking at the elephant in the room. But who then does this because you are talking plural. So we do something. It's kind of like, so who is we?
In most of the cases, people themselves close to the topic, close to the issue. If I have a dispute with my team colleague, we do it together. In this kind of environment that it's so transparent, everybody sees it. We cannot hide it anymore because it's being said, understood that there is an issue here. But there is help available. But not help in a way, like you said, the bosses or HR. We are not going to ask a parent to come that this is too difficult, but rather we have the agency in these difficult situations as well to somehow try to solve these. But then there needs to be support mechanisms. These companies often they have defined conflict resolution processes that if we cannot solve it ourselves, where can we get help again to solve it ourselves? We might have some trained people who have conflict resolution facilitation skills, or just asking a person from another team, come and look that we don't
analyze the situation.
We don't start fighting each other. That it's we
moderator, outside moderator.
Moderating it. But again, leaving the agency to ourselves. But again, there is some kind of mechanisms that if in the end we cannot solve it, then those are solved by then maybe using some kind of role and power, what we have agreed to be the mechanisms. That we are not, our backs are not against the wall, that we need to solve it if we can't. But these are very rare cases. Maybe it happens once a year or never, that if we decide that in the end it's the CEO who can make the final decision. But that doesn't happen. Most of these cases are being solved by people themselves. But if they can't, then we know that yes, we have mechanisms for that.
Are there many companies in Finland that have started this journey? Now I see when you talk and you were saying, I digress, but that you were saying that companies that have started to adopt this method, they compare themselves to living organism or complex organism, because it seems that it's something that is continuing evolving and facing all the time new challenges. So it seems that it's anyway also kind of labor intense. In a sense, it's like you have to be able to address new things from time to time that you might not foreseen. When the old model is like all in boxes, all predicted, and you have everything like laid out. So I understand that, but I was asking, like, in Finland, are there companies that they have implemented successfully or are implementing more or less successfully this kind of paradigm, the Teal structure?
I would say there are maybe few tens of organizations who are maybe larger than 20 people. Of course, there can be smaller ones, but at least what I'm aware, maybe 20, 30, 40 organizations. Few of them have started already from scratch that we want to build this kind of self-organizing, bossless company. Most of them have done or are in a constant phase of transition. In this transition, the transition from a traditional organization into this is not a trivial thing to do. It takes time, it takes energy. Sometimes it's very messy.
Yeah.
And then we might need quite a lot of these meta level discussions. But in the end, when you get to this kind of when the daily work is being more or less, when it's natural for us to self-organize, then it looks like you said, we are not in boxes. We don't feel that there are boxes around us, but still it's just work. We don't resolve conflicts every day, and we don't discuss, and it's nothing fancy or special. It's just doing work. It's that more and more, I think this is why they are so productive in the end, because they can concentrate on what is really meaningful, because they decide it themselves. It's not coming from someone else. People constantly adapt and do things that are actually providing value and that makes sense to do. So in the end, it might look like a very traditional or even boring company, that there is not fancy. There are not pinball games or cappuccino machines and all kind of these which represent often the green paradigm.
But it's still this that people do meaningful things. I picture this kind of situation in which someone just decided for him it's meaningful to, I don't know, build a house, so he doesn't come to work and build his house.
And most likely his or her colleagues will approach this situation from a place of curiosity. What's going on? Why are you not motivated? And helping that person then most likely to verbalize some kind of unmet needs or whatever there has been, and that we understand what's going on here. Let's try to make sense.
But this requires from the people and colleagues quite a different approach towards this, because you would normally, in a normal company, I'll call it normal, maybe working in the orange system, they would say, oh, look, that guy is so lazy, that girl is so lazy, they don't do anything, we have to complain, or this is, then we have to do double work, or we have to do her or his job. So now the needed reaction from the colleague, it's kind of compassion almost.
Well, actually, I would say that this is very rare that it comes to, at least it doesn't.
I know.
I'm sorry.
I give you always extreme examples.
Yeah, and these extreme cases I don't see them happening in these organizations.
Okay.
Because when people feel like they care about the well-being of their colleagues, they care about the results of their colleagues, because the colleagues are not working for the boss who pressurized the system to provide results, because we all want to get good work done. And if our colleague is somehow slacking off, not showing up in the morning, we start asking, what's going on? Is it your divorce? Is your child is sick? Are you okay? Sort of having these, because they know these people and their lives better than often that HR or bosses do.
Yeah, because they're always elbow to elbow with them.
Yeah, they are working daily most of the time, spending together with them. So they understand what's going on in their lives and in their minds much better. And that's why they are much better than to support each other in sort of like, okay, you have a tough situation in your life, maybe we could take some of your workload off. And then that person is, okay, well, that's nice from you, yes. And if you are approached with that kind of help and respect, most likely you want to be then again full.
You want to give back, and
you want to give back. Okay, thanks for with this 80% load. I think I can cope with that. And then that person really tries to carry his or her weight, and that's why this rarely happens, that people just hide somewhere and don't show up.
Yeah, and there is not the risk that like teams start to set their own goals or set their own activities that might actually not take care of the core business of the company. And do you think that it might create, let's say, negative spin-offs? Because I can see that it might create good spin-offs, but the alignment of the people to the goal, that is something that is it's so like stamped in my head that I kind of,
this is an interesting
difficulties to let it go, because if you are you have a company that serves seniors and retired people, I mean, everyone has most likely some sort of the people that they are attracted to the company and hired, most likely they have a human factor, they want to be with people, they want to help, but they might start to decide that, hey, I don't know, actually we can also at the same time cut the trees of the of the yard, and we then today we go and do, or we start our company there. I don't know. It's again maybe extreme, but how do then this kind of a team mission, how it's formed?
I see this problem having in organizations that sort of stop into building self-organizing teams. In the team level, they have autonomy to do what the team is expected to, but still the teams are being led in a hierarchical and centralized fashion. That there is the top management who tells each team what to do, and then again you have a parent-child relationship between the team and the organization.
You fall back into that.
Yes, but when you actually remove that idea that there is a central coordination in the whole organization, but rather it's a sort of like team of teams, like Stanley McChrystal wrote in his book, that we have several different parts of the organizations who then look what others are doing, and there starts to be this kind of peer accountability, and these companies often they are very transparent. That's like very open, also about difficult and uneasy issues. Somehow they have been able to build the psychological safety and the processes that these things are being brought to surface, and they are willing to give feedback. They approach from curiosity, grace, and think that yes, they have good intentions, why they want to go there, but at the same time they are willing to challenge. That have you taken into account that our monetary situation is quite critical now. If you go there, innovate in a completely new way, we are not sure if we are going to get any revenue from this new business. That you might be jeopardizing everyone's salaries here. And sort of like bringing up the systemic responsibility, at the same time leaving the autonomy. Yes, we trust you to do if you still believe that the risk is worth taking, most likely, then yes, they can do it. And again, they might have some conflict resolution mechanisms if somebody thinks that they are too naive, they don't have the understanding. This is putting the company at risk.
So, aren't there extremes or like different stages when you start incorporating this kind of idea and low hierarchy and this self-organization? I've read that there are companies in which people set their own salaries also.
Yes.
And that is also something that I find astonishing, almost like impossible that can happen. But is this, have you been in consulting, have you been in the situation in which the topic it's about? So can we decide until the point that we decide when and how much we get and what work we do? I mean.
Yeah, we have several customers who have implemented these self-set salaries. And it takes some iterations for some to get it working and what's going on, but not so that people would be selfish. These discussions are not easy, but these companies have been, most of them or all of them are saying that we cannot go back. It's so crucial that we did this, even though it's easy. We still want to do it, but there are a few issues here, like thinking about our relation to money. For example, how much do we really need? Is it that we need as much as we can get? No, that's not the answer. But can we sort of like, are we looking at this from a mindset of scarcity versus abundance? That do we have a concept of enough?
Or it becomes somewhat philosophical. You have to have a philosophical communication with each of the worker.
But this is maybe more what happens in real life. These discussions might not need to be had like I'm explaining here. Yeah. But still, the people are reasonable.
But wouldn't you get?
People understand, for example, that if I triple my salary, and every few other people do it, we don't have salary for everyone. We cannot do that.
Yeah, that I understand. But if you go for a company like, well, of course, nowadays, latest in Finland, the electricity provider company, they have skyrocketed their incomes for 300%. You cannot say that like, okay, we will finish the money this year. So everyone could just say, okay, let's just double the salary to everyone. I mean, it's also something that you can fluctuate and say, now there is a lot of money in the cash machine. Let's just take it out. Wouldn't you get a bit more money if you would think, no, that like, I can buy the Porsche, or what is enough? But I have kids, or I have this. So maybe I want to put bases for a future, or I will get retired. You don't know the system. If will it work? So there are many reasons in which a practical person, smart and not selfish, would say like, I rather get more than what is enough to pay my bills.
I haven't seen that happening in these companies, but this is not the thing that they start with. Salaries is one of the hardest ones.
And down the path.
Yeah, yes. down the path. But still, I would say the values need to be aligned all the way from self-set salaries into sharing dividends or to shareholders. If you don't have a mindset of what is enough there, I think it's sort of a little false thinking that we can have that kind of culture and mindset inside the organization in the small scale if we don't apply the same principles in the large scale. That how much profit do we make? How much do the big bosses, what's their salary? If it's 100 times the one of the less, I'm not seeing that happening in these organizations again, because it's not in line with their values of having these extreme that some top management could be exploiting as much money as possible, and then we expect employees to be very reasonable in their asks.
There is a base of value anyway coming out of this, and so does it become crucial then the hiring once the company is set on this and it's operating on this Teal system, so it's based on value and the way it works. Then they grow hopefully, and they have to hire someone else, new people. How is important and crucial it is if for every company it is really crucial to hire the correct person, not only skill-wise but also value-based, and how they will integrate into the company. How it becomes crucial for a Teal company to hire someone new, because anyway there is quite a special organization environment. Does it become like a big problem, the next hiring?
This is interesting you mentioned that. Just this morning I had a group of board members from this organization discussing about this theme, about hiring, for example, as well. That do we well, mainly yes, competence is the key. We need some kind of competence in the company, but do we hire for a culture fit? Because in the long run, if we hire, we are likely to hire people who are similar to ourselves. And if we then only hire the people that we like, we are not being challenged. I think we are more diminishing in our...
or at least you're not enriching.
Yeah, we need to be challenged. And that's why we need to have a diverse people coming. Not too much, because this is sort of, at least in the early stages, it's quite fragile doing this transition, that if we have too much people coming from traditional mindset and paradigm, they take over. That if there are some people who believe that people can be trusted, we can do this in a peer-to-peer fashion, then I think it's in danger. But when the company grows, then I think it makes sense not only to hire for a culture fit, but sort of somehow challenging ourselves that we are still renewing ourselves and our values.
Also because anyway the assumption is that this kind of organization allows people to realize more themselves. So most likely the person coming in will adapt and to the culture rather than destroying it.
Exactly. And because of the transparency and openness, and people then sort of things come to surface. And quite often if you don't fit in that kind of environment, people are, and the system helps you to adapt. But if you cannot, I think most often people then freely think that this is not the place for me.
They decide to leave. Yeah, of course.
But still thinking. But I want to add to the salary discussion, because it's not just that. Yes, it's nice to share power over how do we slice the cake, how do we share the money that we have, but then we forget about sharing the other part of the equation. That where does the money come from? And I think one key here is also distributing the power and responsibility over business, over money. That it's not that, yes, we are empowered to do our projects, our customer work, but somebody else will take care of the business. And then we want to share the salaries.
That's a bit childish.
So I think one part of the success is then having so that people start connecting themselves also to the sort of money flow and the business part, like what do we do here? Where in the public sector about the metrics, what we need to fulfill, that is not someone else's job to get us customers or get solid business models, but ourselves understanding where the money comes from, what kind of customers do we want, where do we is this sustainable in the long run, and that is maybe why these companies are also resilient, and their lifespan is most likely much longer, because they are able to renew themselves naturally, adapting to the environment, because then people start looking at the business also and doing the needed changes. So change as a concept is something completely different in these organizations. It's not like somebody's facilitating change in a controlled fashion. Change management is not happening because they are in constant flux. Change is happening all the time. It's a natural place to be.
So the company actually should also result into a more agile company.
They are naturally agile. You don't need to have agile structures and trainings, because somehow people have it's built in to the structure.
So there are concrete economical benefits inside like that get it with the change.
I would say that most likely most likely these are more productive, but you cannot guarantee it, of course. And if you approach this from the idea of getting more money, you're most likely to fail. So sort of like some organizations or managers or owners, entrepreneurs might think that I would call it in a bad way, that let's exploit this self-organization, that now we can make much more money for the shareholders.
But of course, because the input is kind of fake. But so the clients that you have, the companies that you have, do they approach you because they have more this kind of like, we want to make a breakthrough, or it's because they say like, hey, I heard that this actually becomes more productive, the company becomes more productive, so we want to reinvent our organization? It's more of a sort of internal push that the companies have, not an economical push.
I would say that most of the organizations approach from these questions that something is not feeling good in the way that we work. We are not in our best potential. People are not feeling well. They might have health issues, motivational issues, not being engaged. Customers are not happy. All kinds of symptoms. Something just doesn't feel right. But with the traditional paradigm, we don't see a big shift because this is how we need to work and organize ourselves. And then sort of being exposed to these kind of ideas, maybe this would actually solve most of the problems that we feel. And the profits, they are something that there are not means to do this, but most likely they will follow. It's like, yes, we need money to do great things here together as people, but that's not. And thinking about, for example, investors and owners, if someone invests money, I think it's fair thing to give return for the investment. That's not the highest purpose, but it's right thing to do. And I think people share that understanding. It's not because we remove the employer-employee dichotomy here, that we are more feeling like
participating together.
Participating together. It's not either or. We have money for owners or employees, but rather that let's do great things, and most likely everybody gets something better out of this, and it's right thing to give investors back. It's right thing to have good salaries. It's right thing to not overcharge customers. Just enough that what makes sense.
Yeah, it's good that you mentioned this, because anyway it sounds anyway so complex, and there is so much talking about more intangible things than rather money, but actually you definitely have an eye for the fact that how things they concretely then change into profit, and that the company anyway has to grow and to be safe anyway. So this is not a system to just destroy, it is a system anyway to keep things going and possibly make people just flourish more and business flourish. So I like the fact that it's not just a philosophical change.
We live in a market economy, And we have to, and it's a good tool for good things. But it's just a tool, just a vehicle for something.
Yes, but because we go to the point of this motto, these phrases that like how we are the company that will provide the best DB service for this, but then actually the thing they want is the money. So then this kind of like purpose is just a phrase, but then at the end of the day it's just money, money, money.
It's purpose washing.
Yes. And I actually buy really well the concrete economical benefit this organization can have. I can see, for example, the agility and the fact that the company can be more agile because the team are much closer to the problem, they are much closer to the fringes of the changes of the market, then they can make faster decision. They can actually get people that they are really interested in that topic to react rather than, okay, let's send one email to the boss will go to the board of director, but then it's against the strategy, so maybe we'll implement it in the next quarter. So I totally understand that agility, and it reminds me of course, Google, it's a monster, and they have resources to do whatever, but every Googleian has 20% of her work free, in the sense that they can pursue it whatever they want and whatever task. And if I'm correct, Google Chrome was a spin-off, so the browser, from one person that said that, okay, I want to pursue this kind of adventure, gathered a team, and then they started to develop it, and now there you go. It is a huge platform with Drive and photos, and so that definitely it's something that they found a need in the market, and they decided to investigate. And so there are Google is not Teal, but there are in this independency and agency, there are concrete monetary benefits I can see. And then I wanted to mention as also Frank Martela was writing in the internal motivation, that the thing that make people to become more productive, live a better life also in the work, and so to become more productive, that means like concrete more money for each hour that the person work. That the factor were three, and one was that the task that the person does have to be adjusted slightly higher to what they are capable of. Not too easy that the people slack, not impossible, but just slightly higher. And people anyway tend to want to achieve more, or they like the fact that they have a small challenge. But then we go to the two main points that I think this Teal brings. One is the working environment, and of course the Teal seems that brings this kind of brings the family environment with the good, and not with the bringing elephants inside the room. So this helps the internal motivation of each worker. And then the other, it's freedom, and it's freedom so that the people can adjust their schedule, adjust their time. They can adjust what they do, the priority. So it seems that also in a philosophical way, to have more motivated people, you have to have, according to Martel and other studies anyway, you have to have these three factors, and Teals actually brings in two factors quite heavily. So I completely buy into the fact that Teal can work. I wonder, but can it be, or will people just exploit it for good? And is it some cultural related? Do you, in your knowledge, do people need to be of a certain culture? There are culture we all know that they are more work oriented, and some other that they are much less. Does culture and anyhow influence this?
Yes, it does influence. This is happening all over the world. There just was a Teal around the world conference, and there were people from South America, Africa, Asia. So
it's applicable everywhere.
It's applicable. Of course, you need to take into account the cultural differences, and somehow then how do you apply it here and there? For example, in Finland, traditionally we have very short power distance between people.
Exactly. It's almost not a normal. It's an extended version of almost the Finnish working culture.
Yeah, we don't have the Herr Director kind of culture here.
Yes. With the suit and comes the dictate.
Yes. So in that sense, it's easier for us. On the other hand, I think my thinking, at least currently, is that our safety net, what we have been providing for Finns, and which has provided great well-being for Finns in the last decades. At the same time, it might have made us a little passive and took out the agency of that there is always someone who will take care of me. The system will take care of me. I have the safety net. And in that sense, we are maybe quite eager to go into the green paradigm of having the servant leader there to help me if I'm not feeling good or happy or succeeding. And that in that sense, building the agency that we are building this thing together. So it's not just, well, if you think about semantics, is it freedom or autonomy within the way that we have organized the system? These companies, they have rules, they have structures that people need to follow, but they feel ownership of the rules. That if the rule doesn't make sense, we know and we can change them. We know how, we know what to do if we have some policies that they are just too much or are not, doesn't make sense anymore.
So there is more of a self-drive, and you rather see that now the situation in Finland is more like the responsibility is just pushed aside and waiting that someone will take it.
Yeah, someone will take it, and the rules are coming from somewhere, the bureaucrats who most likely do good work but still are bring roadblocks to us. But here it's again agency. It's not anarchy what we're talking. Some companies talk about anarchic solidarity, for example, that at the same time we are able to coordinate ourselves. We need some structure and rules for that. And yeah.
And the Teal, it's applicable. You also said that you have public sector clients from public sector and private, so it is applicable everywhere. I don't know. While you were thinking, I was thinking that like, what would be the reaction for an engineer, for example, maybe that is more like a structure person, and will they become more anxious to the fact that it seems that there is no agenda of the day and there is no anything that you can put into the, or that your Excel will be broken in 2 days because someone decides as a team that okay, we want to pursue another different direction. Do you think that there is no sort of environment or company where this would not work?
I think it doesn't work if you do something unethical, because that's not what people want to do out of their intrinsic motivation. But for the rest of the organizations, I think it can work. It has been shown to work in small companies, big companies, huge companies, in different domains, different geographies.
Can you tell slightly about one company? Can you mention a few companies here in Finland that have gone through this and they are successfully now thriving, and what is their size? Can you tell something?
Well, most of them are small, under less than 150 people. So I'm not aware of any bigger companies
in Finland.
Who.
But then again, 90% of the companies in Finland are small, medium small.
Yeah, so. And the big ones have some maybe trials where some department or some part has been trying to
implement that.
Yeah. So traditionally they are small. From all domains, there are companies from social sector, construction, marketing agencies.
Even construction, okay.
Even construction, or actually they're doing consultation called Vertia. Was in Helsingin Sanomat as well, article about them and their self-set salaries as well.
Yeah, I've read it. Yeah.
Yeah, so very traditional industry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Then there are, talking about big companies overall, like the big pharma, Roche, a Swiss company having 90,000 people. They have about 200, I guess, in Finland as well. So just saying that.
And they work in Teal.
Yeah, they've been doing the transition for some time, and they are very serious about it.
Yeah.
And already are quite far in that. But just wanted to give that as an example that this can work in a very regulated environment. It's not just IT companies or something where this can be done, but it can be done in where the pharma domain is very regulated. Works there as well.
And the amount of people working there and international, it seems that it's like almost unachievable It would seems that you need structure and KPIs to make it work, but no.
No. And from public sector, for example, the Central Library Oodi in Helsinki, they wanted to organize, be a self-organizing organization from the start. In Järvenpää, their early education now is in the stage of process of trying to go into this direction.
Then you mentioned some IT companies, but of course some of those are more forerunners and experimenters. So it's I guess it kind of belongs to that kind of people. Yeah. Well, it's not. I don't want to say it in a bad way, but like, of course.
Yeah, several in IT and marketing agency Works. Works is the name of the company. They are 20-30% company working in this way without top management.
Yeah. And still profitable.
Yes.
So please tell what is the company or what is your consultancy if anyone is interested in reaching out to you, because anyway I think it's really interesting what we're bringing up, because it kind of proves that it can be economically functional, but also it is like it sounds that people will be and will feel much better at work. So I think that it's something that everyone should listen and think like, oh, can this be applied to me? Can we make the change? No one wants. I won't believe that there is any owner or CEO that decides, yeah, it's okay for me that if this person under me are struggling, or it's okay if I see burnout in my company. So I think that like it should be natural to at least seek for changes and seek for help.
I think curiosity is the key here, sort of being open-minded and together discussion openly in these kind of new opportunities, that can we actually challenge the current management paradigms, that if we have already few tens of companies organizing in this way, how is this possible, what's going on, sort of trying to learn from them, because there is not one model. Everybody needs to build their own way into this.
Yeah, but and of course the attitude, you need to be brave anyway to make this step, but also you have to the knowledge, because this might be totally a new topic for many people, that there is no even knowledge that this actually can exist and can be implemented. I understand skepticism, but skepticism maybe comes after you actually got the knowledge of it. But yes, some people might not even have the knowledge yet that this is possible.
Skepticism is understandable, and there are also a lot of misconceptions about this. And those, I'm happy to challenge those or give more information and understand what
I tried to challenge you many times.
Yeah, so these companies are learning together from each other how they are then doing recruiting and sales and making decisions and setting goals. That they have all different ways, but then sharing, sort of learning together. How would it be possible to change this paradigm into something where people can flourish more and live a better and more fulfilled life? That's what they are looking for.
Because the family paradigm was kind of like offering a bit the same. You get better people, like happier people working, so you will get more money out of each hour of work. But everyone could see through that, like, okay, these are the challenges. This will not gonna work. But this feels a continued development, but it makes to me much more sense being based on this internal motivation and the purpose. So
I think in the end it's much easier because it's more natural for us. The green paradigm is sort of like where we need to put the money and energy and effort to sort of keep the downsides of the traditional hierarchy off the side, that we still can thrive in this kind of environment. But it's built into the system, and the green paradigm is not changing the system. There is still the hierarchy.
It doesn't engage you.
Yes.
Also.
And so things start happening more naturally, and that's very beautiful thing to watch, seeing what will emerge when we finally get quite far in the journey.
What kind of feedbacks have you got from companies you were consulting? And
quite often the employees say that we are spoiled. How can we any more work in anywhere else than a Teal organization?
I see.
It's just it's a place where I can form my own role and find my own path in this kind of environment, which is so just such a place that it's like if
there's no way back.
If you live in a democracy, are you willing then to go to an authoritarian state anymore? Yes, you might be able to tolerate it.
Yeah,
but you understand what the democracy and freedom is. And same happens in these companies.
So if everyone should jump to the Teal wagon, and you get more money out of the company, and you get better people and happier people. How can people reach you? What is your company name?
My company is Prominda. Prominda.com. From the website. Yes. You can find me.
Jussi, thank you for the nice conversation. You made me believe. Hopefully, many others believed in this paradigm as a possible choice and possibility of the organization.
Happy to hear. Thanks for
Thank you.
This discussion.
Bye.
Bye.